Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Spark of Genius Flesh and Blood production. I'm joined by my co-host, co-creator, co-commentator, co-caster, co-compatriot.
Hello.
I think I added. I
You
think I added
added
one
a
there.
fifth thing for me. Nice.
Did I say so? I might have doubled up on one, but that's okay. My name is Eric. We're gonna be doing a bit of a. I know it looks like another tier list. It's not really a tier list. This is mainly in response to Mr. Pintor sending another hero to the living legend graveyard here. So first with Chain, and now he has added Oldhim
He's doing a lot of
to the
work.
meme stack. So let's as Rob throws Oldhim next to Prism in the dead category. I mean, Chain's not in there. I think this is made after the
Goodbye.
fact, but
Goodbye.
um, this is a big deal because Oldhim, kind of like Prism, was like a pseudo gatekeep to a lot of
Gatekeeping.
decks. It did, yeah. Oldhim really did warp the meta around him for a long time, right? As in, people are teching towards seeing a bunch of Oldhim. Oldhim being one of the strongest decks
Yeah.
for. I mean, other than the Starvo period, once Prism LL'd, and once Starvo LL'd, Oldhim was the boogeyman for a
Yeah.
very, very long time.
Yeah, he requires a
And
lot of anti-fatigue stuff for a lot of decks that just couldn't pump the
yeah,
gas constantly, right? So it's
a lot more defensive tools also to avoid like CNC pummels and
yeah,
stuff. There were
that's
different
true.
iterations of
Lead the
Oldhim.
charges. Not lead the charge. What was it called?
Reinforce the line.
Reinforce the line. That's the one. Yeah.
That is leading the charge here, but we're
Yeah.
gonna do a bit of a kind of prediction slash what we think is gonna happen to the existing heroes. Obviously, we don't really know exactly what the new
Yeah.
Prism or the new Vincent does, but we're gonna kind of ignore that for the minute. We have ideas on what they might do,
Hmm.
but we can see for the remaining heroes kind of where they're fitting in here. So
Yeah.
starting with Dory,
We'll
Dory
go
really hated.
basically
Yeah, well,
timeline
yeah,
beginning to end here. So yeah, Dory. I think we initially had her on A before this change, A or B around there. But yeah, how does she like Oldhim?
we had her in B, and I think one of the reasons we had her on B is because Oldhim is a dumb matchup
It's
for
really
Dory.
tough.
Like it's
Yeah,
super difficult for Dory, and I think Oldhim leaving means Dory is definitely
Dory
gonna
stocks go
get.
up.
I think Dory stocks go up. We also have to look a bit of a preamble that the decks that Oldhim kind of gatekeep quite a bit are the decks that are going to be probably more prevalent in the meta, considering their effect on the other top heroes in the triangle of the last kind of big events, being Lexi, Dromai, Oldhim, being
Hmm.
being the main triangle here. So with Oldhim out of the picture, we have to kind of think on like what decks are kind of going to take those slots. And
Exactly. There's
my
a void
inkling
in that
here is that
triangle.
there
So
is a void in the triangle here. So my inkling is that Azuri is going to get more popular as a response to Lexi, and we're also going to see some more Azalea possibly because Oldham kind of shat on Azalea, and Azalea is going to be able to kind of also bring those aggro decks under control here. So with that being said, I think Dory is decently positioned into both of those decks. I think Dory still suffers from, and it looks like she might get some cards in the next upcoming expansion here, being Warrior is part of it,
yep.
so she could get some stuff there. And I think she's in like a better spot. I'd hazard to put her at A. I don't think I think she's still straddling B or A. I think she's higher on B and then lower on A possibly,
Hmm.
but I think she definitely we should probably just like remove a couple of these categories, like maybe remove B and C and just rename S as like improved or you
we
know
can we can do that. Yeah. So improved. So
because we
let's
can't.
put her in the improved category.
Dory improved, yeah.
So we'll put
And
here
so
remain same.
yeah, same, and then like deflated.
Deflated.
Oh, and
got
then yeah,
got
deflated
worse.
exactly.
Got
Yeah,
worse.
get good.
I can remove this one.
Yeah, just remove C here. So
Oh, delete row. There we go. Okay.
so Dory does improve her because it is one of her worst matchups. I think she's still
Yeah.
I think she's still like a decent matchup into Lexi. I think Lexi because there's just a lot of armor and it is one of those decks that is able to punish. I think the key is that Lexi in particular doesn't block a lot if it's not necessary, and
Yeah.
Dory doesn't have a hell of a lot of on hits, and then a lot of her tricks are dependent on blocking. So like Glint, Iron
Right.
Song response, Route, a
All the
lot of the cards
reprise
get
stuff,
extra
right?
value reprise.
So
Yeah, exactly.
but
Um,
if you let the Dawnblade keep hitting, then you're just gonna keep accumulating counters, right? So there's a point where you're gonna want to block Dawnblades. So it's
mhm.
not like a completely lost matchup. I think it's just that your reprise is pretty much useless, but your Dawnblade can get really
Yeah.
thick, right?
Exactly. And I think with the rise of Dromai kind of happening more and more in the
Mm.
meta, as being like a pretty good option into Lexi and
Mm?
very good into Azuri. I think with Dromai stonks going up, I think Dory stonks have to go up because I think Dory is a good hero into Dromai. However you look at it, it's you could play the Dromai. It's not like free. You can play
Yeah,
the Dromai specifically into Dory and learn how to play into it. But in general, Dory being able to kind of
free procs on
negate,
Dawnblade, right?
yeah, being able to clear a little bit easier. I mean, Dory can definitely lose steam, but
Dory does struggle
overall,
potentially against the Ashwings, so there is a way to
mhm,
play around it for sure if you're Dromai, but I think Dory has game into Dromai, so I agree. I think
yeah,
improved is a good place to put her. Let's talk about Rhinar. So Rhinar, he's good into the control version of Oldhim, but not so much into the mid range version. So
yeah, he's okay into the mid range
I
version. He's
I
not like awful.
yeah, so him losing a potentially good matchup into Oldhim is kind of rough, but at the same time, he wasn't like that favored, right? If he
He's good
was at
into
all,
Yeah, he's still good into Dromai.
he's great into Dromai.
Uh,
Yeah,
I think he's reasonable into some Azuri lists. I think he gets annihilated by Lexi. And
yeah.
so
Lexi's the tough one. Yeah,
I think overall he got worse. And the reason is because
got
I think
worse.
there's
Yeah.
going to be more. Yeah, I think
You
there's
think
going to be more
aggro's
aggro
going
decks
up?
running around.
That's a good
On
point
it,
actually. Yeah, yeah.
I have a feeling that without the Oldhams, there might be a lot more ninjas running around as
I
far as
think
Katsus and Fives.
Katsu stocks probably go up. Actually, we can talk about it next if you want. We can bring Katsu in the
Yeah,
list now. Yeah, but I
well,
agree with the Rhinar
yeah,
stuff. I think losing a good matchup into a control deck and potentially there being more aggro in the meta would make him
yeah.
just drop down a bit. Yeah. All
Yeah,
right.
and I think that while he is good against Dromai,
It's not free.
it's hard. Yeah, it's hard to say, um, exactly how he's going to be able to beat these other fringe decks that just randomly pop up here.
Right.
So we can
Yeah.
talk about Katsu. I think Katsu is interesting. I think his matchup into Oldhim was actually quite good. I
Okay.
would hazard to say favored. I
Okay.
don't
I
flame me
just
in
know
the
that like
comments here,
Crown of
but
Seeds is pretty tough into Katsu
no,
because
you just
block.
Vanguard. Nah, you just
Okay,
Vanguard.
you
You
just
just Van Brace.
Vanguard.
Sorry, you
Yeah.
just Van Brace.
Van
No, you just
Brace.
Van
Yeah.
Brace. Yeah, you just Van Brace, and you just always leak damage, right? So
Okay.
you could block with the shield with the Rampart, but I
Rampart
think
2.
most Oldhams were going Anothos into Katsu, if I recall here,
Okay.
to try to like because the crown doesn't do anything if they're always going to run Van Brace, right? But the nice thing about Katsu is you no longer need to waste slots on things like Van Brace. So you
Right.
have a little bit more flexibility into those matchups. You're less likely to need that fatigue strategy because I think we
Mm,
were also Katsu decks were also running things like the time snap kind of Mugenshi combo line to avoid being fatigued. I think the only deck that like really
true.
could have fatigued you is Oldhim. So with Oldhim out of the
Yeah.
meta, you do lose like a better matchup for you, but you are like you're decently good into Dromai. I think you have game into Lexi. Like you definitely
Yeah.
could beat Lexi. Like you
Yeah.
can high roll Lexi and just beat her, right?
Yeah.
These decks can be quite aggro. I
Yeah.
think Katsu also has reasonable matchups into like fringe decks. So like I think Katsu can do well into like Azuri. I
Yeah.
think he's pretty reasonable. He has a lot of blues to deal with stuff like Icelander,
Right.
and
I
he's
think
strong enough
he's
in
strong
general.
across the board, and losing the
Mhm.
Oldhim matchup might make him a little more favored because other decks will also come in, right? Once
Mhm.
Oldhim's gone, other decks that are more aggressive will jump in. And Katsu typically has a good chance against those decks, like you mentioned, Lexi against Dromai. So I think he has a good chance of getting better in this coming meta. I think we'll see a lot more Katsu.
Yeah, let's finish it off with Bravo here for Welcome to Wraith. Bravo's interesting because he was like the paralleled Guardian. He's the only Guardian left. And I think
True.
I'm going to put Bravo under Improved. And the reason I'm going to say that is just because I think his matchup into Dromai is great, right? So if we're
True.
expecting more Dromais along the board,
Yeah.
his Lexi matchup is good. I think Lexis will now have to like respect Bravo and probably put in stuff
Mm,
like Perch Grapplers, but uh,
yep.
in general, if you can line up your Bravo deck to be a lot more, because now like the only deck you were really worried about going like super long into the fatigue matchup is Oldhim. So a lot of those like cards that you might have had to put into Oldhim, you could take those out now.
Yeah.
Because it's just not a thing that's needed into other decks. Other decks just can't fatigue you. Like nobody could fatigue like Oldhim can. It's like Gaston, right? Like nobody could
Yeah.
do it like Gaston can. So
Cue the
which is
song.
funny because
Yeah.
Bravo is more like Gaston anyways. But it's kind of hilarious
Mm-hmm.
in that regard that they're being paralleled. But I think because you're able to do that, you might be able to see more aggressive Bravo lists, right? So those lists will probably eat Dromai for breakfast here, but I think his matchup into Dory is like and Rhinar are still very skill intensive. I think like the Katsu matchup is a little like fine. I think his Azalea matchup's quite good. Like I think he rips Azalea a new one, and if we're gonna see more Azalea in the meta,
True.
very like you still have staunch response, you still
Right.
have like all nice good little
I
D
mean,
reacts, the ones that made Azalea cry a little bit, and you have a lot
yeah.
of disruption. You know, CNC pummel, crippling crush,
Mm-hmm.
spinal crush, like ignoring the no go again on any of your buffs. Like it's super good. Like you don't really care about Randall Ledger because you're only doing one thing anyways.
True.
Like you, yeah,
Yeah.
you can't Bravo something and you can't like Tectonic and do something. You used to just pitch to Hammer for 4. It's not bad. Or you can like pitch 2 cards to 9. You can pitch 3 cards to crippling. Like you could just play one big attack, right?
Yeah.
So really didn't do a lot there. I think his overall power level is still quite good also. So I'm gonna say overall he improved.
Okay. I guess we were talking about Azalea a bit, so we know
Sure.
Oldhim was pretty rough on Azalea,
Oldhim was
right?
rough.
A
Oh yes.
little rough. So that being said, she should go up, right? Because
I think so.
Azalea, you know, not having to worry about the Oldhim matchup makes her be able to tech differently into different matchups.
Solid. Yeah.
Um,
Solid into Lexi, solid into
uh,
um
how about Dromai? Dromai is
Dromai is difficult just because she doesn't really have endless arrow to like she has it, but she doesn't really run it at the moment to be able to get rid of those dragons when she needs to.
it could be a tech
I
option
think that
nowadays, though. I know
yeah,
most. I
maybe you
think most
run.
Azaleas run one just to be able to deal with the
Well,
dragons, but you can now run
I know
maybe more than one.
beforehand you might be able to run like endless. You also might be able to run stuff like Rabble. So like have like
Oh,
extra
Rabble too.
attack actions to get
Yeah.
through because you don't run a bunch. You don't run many blues in Azalea anyways. So you're able to just like use extra Rabbles to get around that. So it's more tech options for Dromai. I think you're good into Katsu. That was the other thing. Like
Hmm.
Randall Ledger just stops Katsu's turn like, straight up, right? Being able to dominate those big arrows, you're kind of you're gonna make Katsu like pay more attention to sideboard slots. I think Katsu is running some reinforced alliance and stuff to try to get around the dominates, but Katsu is probably going to be on like 5 or 6 flicks and flick flacks and probably a couple maybe some sinks. So I think Katsu will have to play a little bit more defensive if we see an increased Azalea
Hmm.
portion in the meta. But overall, I think she just improved because Oldhim was just gatekeeping her. Honestly, like she without Oldhim, I think like she had like pretty like earlier on when people like didn't know what Azalea did and Azalea was wrecking everything, and then
Right.
Oldhim just gate kept all the Azaleas out of like past the piece, and you were just like, if I could avoid Oldhim, I could probably, you could win the matchup. Like it's not free for Lexi to get through Azalea here. So I
Yeah.
think she overall improved.
I agree. All right. Let's move on
Viserai,
to Viserai.
I
Okay.
think Viserai is same. No,
Yeah.
nothing changed.
I don't think Oldhim was that big of an issue. Probably.
I think
Like
Viserai. I
it's.
think if anything, Viserai got worse because I think Oldhim was actually one of Viserai's pretty good
I think
matchups.
so. Eh?
Maybe
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. I think you're right. I kind of forget exactly
Mid
how the matchup
range.
goes, but
Mid-range. I think the mid-range matchup was good for Viserai. I think the fatigue matchup was still bad for Viserai. I
I'm
don't
okay.
think
Same. Same. I think he probably won't change that much from this change.
no. I
Yeah.
think Viserai's issue right now is the deck itself has a lower power level than some of these explosive decks.
Mm,
Although the Royal Viserai, so Zach Bunn's version, can high roll the shit out of people. So
true. Yeah.
it's still kind of feast or famine. I don't think much has changed here.
I agree. Uh, Dash was okay into Oldhim, I think,
Hmm?
because you can fight control decks pretty well with your pistol package, right? It's kind of Dash has always been good into Guardians. I think that hasn't really
Yeah.
changed. So um, I don't know if Dash is probably a little sad to see Oldhim go. Honestly, Dash is not
Yeah.
great into the aggro decks. She suffers into
No.
Katsu, suffers into Lexi. So I'm gonna say she got worse. I don't know if hot take or not.
Yeah. I don't know if she got. I'm between. I
Like
think I'm still
same
on the same
same.
same.
Okay.
I think Dash was actively good against like the fatigue Oldhim, or the fatigue the slower Oldhim, so
Yeah.
not like pure mid range, not like Michael Fang's like
Yeah.
Easter Egg Zealous belting Oldhim. I think that Oldhim is actually pretty good against Dash because you're
Hmm.
like throwing a bunch of pressure, and this was back in the meta beforehand where like that was the matchup you saw quite a bit before the Outsiders meta essentially. So uh, but I think like obviously you can tree frog dash it up and still do well. Like Dash has
True.
put up some good results, right? Like in the calling, won the calling in Baltimore. So
Yeah.
it's not like Dash. I would put Dash in same.
Same thing. Okay.
I think
Yeah,
I
that's
think her
true.
matchup into like some of the improved heroes, I dislike her Katsu. Like I think Katsu just rolls Dash
It'll be
in my opinion.
miserable. Lexi too.
I think I think Lexi is Dash could beat Lexi depending on the build you're on.
Right.
Uh, but it's not easy. And like you're looking for like you're not looking for if you're gonna see a shit ton of one particular deck, you kind of don't want it to be that unfavored unless you really love Dash kind of thing, right? So
Yeah.
I don't like Katsu. I think the Azalea matchup's actually okay. I think Rend the Ledger just shits on you though, which is like really really bad
It's true.
because yeah, Rend the Ledger and then your frailty makes your weapons -1.
Mm.
Really good against Dash. Like that's like Dash's bread and butter is using the pistol and stuff like that. So I think Azalea is also good. I think Bravo, the aggressive Bravo, is good into Dash. I think if you build him
Mm.
aggressive enough, it's the same kind of idea that you're just slinging damage at
Yep.
her.
Yep.
Um,
It's true.
but like the more mid-range Bravo, I think will probably lose more often than not. Probably a little bit low into Dash. So I think overall, no difference. I
Okay.
think her flexibility does mean that she will be able to figure out
She'll
whatever people figure out
survive
what the meta
the
is. Yeah,
changes in
yeah.
the meta. She always has. She's a cockroach. She's gonna be there all the time.
Spark of cockroach. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think she's just very variable here.
Okay, Kano.
Kano? I don't think anything changed. I think Kano is just like a wild card. I think
She's
Kano
always a
Kano
wild card.
doesn't
Yeah.
I don't think Kano cares what the meta is. Kano will come in and do well, preying on the fact that nobody tests against
It's
Kano.
true.
Like when you come into these big events and you're like, okay, so I gotta test against the PT, I gotta test against what
Yeah.
Lexi, I gotta test against Dromai,
It's
I
true. He's
gotta
always
test
at the
into
back of the list, right? You never really consider Kano at the top of that list ever, and he
you
always ends
gotta
up doing okay in every event, right? He's always
yeah,
just
because
there,
you first you gotta find a Kano main in your team
which
or
is
who actually
not
wants to practice
hard.
Kano.
I'm sorry, which is not easy to
Not
do.
easy.
Yeah.
And then you have to play against Kano a bunch, knowing that you're putting into a time into a matchup you might never see.
Yeah. I
So
same. Yeah.
same.
Oh, Arachne, sorry.
Arachne?
Sorry, I'm gonna move him to the end because he's part of like kind of the last bunch of heroes.
Sure.
Let's go for
I'll do
bolting.
Monarch.
Yeah, I'll go Monarch. Yeah, so just bolting
Same.
Levia pretty much. Yeah, same. I'm okay with that.
No comments on Bolden
Yeah.
yet. Bolden will
We'll
need help
see
for
what
the next set.
happens once Dust Till Dawn comes out. Levia probably same thing. I don't think she was really affected that much.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
Lexi.
Lexi, so
Lexi,
probably got
I think Lexi
better.
improved.
Yeah, I mean, it kind
I think
of it
Lexi's
kind of sucks because she's at top of the meta already. I mean, I guess she and Oldhim were pretty neck and neck with Dromai there, but like now with Oldhim gone, she's the one who fills, or not fills the void, but she's the one pressuring that void because in this ecosystem, she's the one now who's unchecked because Oldhim's gone. Like the control hero's gone, so the aggro
Yeah,
hero can flourish, right? I just
she gets to
yeah
rebuild a bit, right? Like she gets to probably expect more aggro decks and probably expect more decks that Oldhim was gatekeeping,
yeah
and probably tune the deck to
she could lean into more ice if she
better
wants
attacking.
to, right?
She could lean into more ice. Yep, chilling ice veins,
Yeah.
winter spike. That kind of package could be better into this newer meta. I think
Yeah.
overall Oldhim was still a tough matchup,
Mhm.
and Oldhim has definitely knocked out a bunch of Lexis. Like it's far from free. Like Lexi can win, and I think the very best Lexi players can like probably call that matchup close to 50-50. But the very best Oldhim players will smush a lot of the Lexi players just because depending on the deck, Oldhim just had the toolkit of a monster. Like the man was like smacked by the hammer so many times that
Yeah.
he just comes back and wins more events, right? So I think Lexi improves probably not as much as like she didn't have that much room to go up even
Yeah, she
further
was
'cause the
already up
deck
there.
itself
Yeah.
yeah, the deck itself is already so powerful that she has so many cards that she can toolbox her way into a lot of stuff now until she gets hit by like bans or anything like that. In which case she might, if Oldham's ban led to them suspending or banning cards out of Lexi's kit,
Hmm.
then it changes, right? If they think that like that Oldham LL is gonna have like that kind of impact, right?
Right.
But
Yeah,
that remains to be seen until July. So we
I
can move on
agree.
to the next Tails hero,
Okay.
the last Tails
The
hero,
last Tails hero,
Briar.
Briar. So we were talking about aggro a little bit. Aggro kind of being a little
Yeah,
better, but I don't know if she improved that much, to be honest. Like, Channel
I think
Mount's
she's
still,
same.
yeah, still have a hell of a card, and it was still okay into Oldhim, right? Like, you're not really losing that bad of a matchup, I guess, with Oldhim being
Yeah,
gone. She might go a
yeah,
little bit higher, but I think compared to like the other heroes like Dory and Katsu, she hasn't really gone up that much. I think she's okay to remain in
yeah.
same. Yeah, yeah,
I think more Azalea is not great for her. More Katsu is probably also not great. I mean, we just played that matchup, but
yeah. It's
more
true.
Katsu
Yeah,
is probably not what she wants to see. I think she could do pretty well into Bravo. I think she could do pretty reasonable into Dory also because of the mixed damage. Very hard for Bravo and Dory to deal with it.
Right.
And then for like kind of the rest of the matchups that we're gonna go through. I think she's good into Dromai. Like I think she's very like the Rune Blades in general are good into. Doesn't mean Dromai can't win, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think both Rune Blades, Viserai and Briar, have a better time into Dromai. So if we're
Right.
expecting more Dromais, Briar stock definitely goes up a bit. But I think if we're expecting more Azaleas, it then goes down a little bit. Because I think
Yeah.
Azalea is just very good into Briar. Like Briar has a shit ton of 2 blocks. You
Yeah.
have to hit to make it So it's like you dominate, you hit, and you're gonna be hitting for not a lot. Briar likes going wide. Hey, check out my red in the ledger. Like
Hmm.
it's just like one of those things where Azalea can really put on a whole lot of like frowns, like frown faces, like dot
Yeah.
frown
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
Briar. So I
Yep.
think that is a little bit difficult for Briar. So overall, I think she's same.
Yeah, I agree. She's always been pretty good, right? She's always at that like kind of cusp of being great, but then this change hasn't really She's not gonna go top of the food chain now because of this. So she's
Yeah.
okay. Ah, Phi. Interesting.
Why is interesting because we also saw him like put up some decent results at RTN because I think he's actually like pretty reasonable into Oldhim now with the whale gone, the Winter's whale gone, because the Winter's whale was like, funnily enough, was probably Phi's worst enemy because
Mm,
like no matter what you do, you're still gonna have an IC4 coming at you, and that IC4, and you didn't have belittle anymore. Like if you like now he didn't have
yeah.
belittle, so if you still saw Winter's whale coming at you, you were kind of just like ugh. But now it's just Titan's fist, and you can't really fatigue Phi. Like it's not really possible because of Phoenix Flames.
Mm,
So you're always able to like pitch to get back your like if you have the blue, you're always able to pitch Searing Ember Blade and come in with that reoccurring damage, and that Oldham's not always going to be able to like block everything out.
right.
So I think it's like not too bad for that respect. I think
Yep.
I really don't like his Lexi matchup,
Yeah.
his
Lexi,
Azalea matchup.
Bravo. Bravo's okay, I guess, but it can go either way. If Bravo disrupts you, then you can't really do anything. Of course,
Yeah.
Azalea can stomp over you too.
So I think like his one boon here is like he's very good into Dromai. Like he's just very good into Dromai. So if we're expecting a lot more Dromais, but I don't know if we're gonna expect like we've already had her being what the second most popular, no, the third most popular deck at PT, something like
I think
that.
it
But now she
was. I
might,
think she was more popular than Oldhim actually. Now that I remember,
yeah.
if I think about it.
I'm gonna say he got worse, and the reason is because Azalea is just very good into him,
Okay,
and that I don't even like his Katsu matchup that much, and I think his Dory matchup's also not very good.
that's
So
true too. Yeah, yeah,
overall, I don't think there's going to be enough new Dromais into the meta that he could just be like, I'm just targeting
yeah.
Dromai. Like
Exactly, exactly.
Dromai's not going
She's
to be the
already
most played
popular.
deck.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dromai's probably not going to be. So unless like he's going to be really good into the new Prism or something like that, which I'm not convinced he. It's not looking like the new Prism's going to be like the old
Like,
Prism, which is kind of not very good into hyper aggro, right? But
yeah,
you-
yeah,
you've also lost Belittle, right? So your consistency of your deck has gone down. You will have off turns, like
right.
more often than not, compared to previously here. So I'm gonna say
Yeah.
he's getting worse overall.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with that.
Doesn't mean he's a bad deck. He can still top. He can still do well. No flame, even
No
though he's
flame,
five.
no pun
No flame.
intended. Yeah.
Icelander.
Okay.
I think Icelander gets worse.
I agree.
Um,
Her matchup into Oldhim was pretty 50-50, right? Maybe Old had the slight edge, but at the same time, with all these other decks coming into the fold,
yep.
she does not like a lot of these decks.
I can't imagine her liking Katsu,
Yeah.
liking
Dromai.
Lexi and Azalea were already beating the shit out of her before at the
Yeah.
very beginning of the meta.
Yeah.
That doesn't change. Your Lexi matchup is not good.
Yeah.
Um,
Katsu would probably just
like
jump on you too, right? Like Katsu
you
runs a little
have
more blue than most of his decks. He can probably
runs
deal with the
runs like
frostbites.
18 to 20 blues. He still puts up a bunch of damage.
Yeah.
The blocking is super important to Katsu. Icelander doesn't want to block with her entire hand every turn. Icelander's really good matchups like earlier on were like Oldhim and Rune Blades, right? That was kind of the key. Like those were the
Okay.
matchups she
Yeah.
did quite well in. Um, and then maybe Bravo, but like the aggressive Bravos can still win.
Hmm.
And the Dories, like aggressive Dory turns, could still win. Like I think Icelander, the issue is you need to play better. like not only do you
It's
have
very
to
skill
play really
dependent.
well, it's skill dependent, and you don't have innate advantages like you used to into these
Mm,
matchups. Like, so you don't have like super favored matchups into. Also, your matchup to Dromai is not particularly good either.
yeah,
Like, unless you're like siding in Singed and shit like that. Like, I don't think your matchup
right.
into Dromai, especially the big dragon Dromai, was particularly good. Um,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I think it's a winnable matchup. But like, I don't think you really want to see Dromai that often. So I'm gonna say she overall got worse.
yeah. I think I agree. I mean, it's funny to think about now that control, the biggest control deck of the meta is now gone, right? And you want
Mhm.
to kind of figure out, well, we need some kind of control hero to be in the meta, right? It can't just be all like aggressive decks running over each other. I'm wondering if
Or
there's
can
gonna
it?
be, well, it'd be I guess, a fun meta to be in. Just play the most gas deck and just run over.
It might be instead of control, it might be more like
Disruption.
aggro disruption. Yeah, it
Disruption's
might be
probably
aggro
gonna be
disruption.
the key. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah, okay,
yeah.
cool. So
Dromai.
Dromai.
The the Dromai Oldhim matchup was a pain in the ass for both players because it goes to time half the time. No, I'm just kidding. But
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's
I
interesting
mean,
because ask a Dromai player and they'll say one thing, and an Oldhim player will say the complete opposite thing. I think
mm,
in the very, very long untimed games,
right,
Michael Fang showed that Oldhim could go the distance. Like this
right.
when there's no time limit on this character, you could do disgusting things. You pick the
Mm,
best blocks. You get time to remember all your pitch stack. You could play as slow as you want. So the strategy Oldhim had of just bopping Dromai's like the super hyper late game strategy of Ghostly Visit
right,
for Dromai, it wasn't.
ghostly
You can't really
touch,
get
right?
to it in 15 minutes. Sorry,
Yeah,
Ghostly Touch.
yeah, yeah.
You can't really get there in 15 minutes usually.
True, true.
So that's not a matchup you're really worrying about now. I think Dromai has like a pretty reasonable matchup into the Rangers in general.
Right.
You can play like sand covers. You can play all six D reacts. You can
Mm,
play unmovable. Like you're doing pretty good. I think you're not great into aggressive Bravo just because there's a shit ton of poppers,
yeah.
and he can just bop your stuff. He can come in with like really big attacks. I think your Katsu matchup is like fine. I think it really kind of depends on how the Katsu's building the deck, but um,
Mm-hmm.
Kodachis are not necessarily they're good against Ashwins, but they're not necessarily as good as Emberblade as in Fi to like, take that automatic 3 every single turn and a Phoenix Flame.
Yeah.
So you get a
Right.
1 and a 3, so you take on the 4 health dragons,
Right.
and you can get the
Or
1 health
an
dragons and 3
Ashwing
health, or 2 health,
plus
or
a
an
three.
Ashwing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can get more off the turn. Just having Kadachi and then having to waste cards. Yeah, you get the mass proc, but it's not as obviously good. Still annoying though. I think your Dory matchup again. It really does depend on how practiced the Dory and Dromai player are. I think if you're not practicing that matchup, you are going to be in trouble.
Mm,
So probably something they'll want to go. And then you see the other kind of matchups here, like unless Fi is rising to popularity and such strengths, I think your Dash matchup isn't amazing, honestly. I think maybe it's close to 50-50. I haven't played enough of that matchup, but every time I've like played both sides of that, it always feels like unless Dash is rocking like double digit poppers, like 9, 10, 11 poppers, I think it's just try to pistol and remember, we've played this game before. It's it's
yeah.
it's kind of like,
It goes
well,
both ways.
yeah, like maybe you go more aggressive, and then if depending on if Dromai's on a lot of 3 blocks and like rocking a bunch of cards, then I think it depends on the deck and the players, of course. But I think overall, probably same. But it really
Yeah.
depends on how much more of like Azaleas pop out and like some of the other aggro decks pop out. But
Right. I think
um,
she'll still
I'll
be pretty close to top of the food chain. So
she
yeah,
probably
Oldhim was a
improved
bad
a little bit,
matchup,
no?
so she probably improved a little bit. Yeah, I'm actually okay to put her into the improved section. I think she's a little happier now that Oldhim's gone. Um,
Yeah,
and the decks that are rising to popularity, she's okay into, right?
yeah. No,
So
that's fair.
yeah,
Let's skip these two for now. Go to Azuri.
sure.
That's the most important one in my opinion.
Yeah,
You're
I
gonna
mean
put that right next to Dory on the left.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, she had two one borderline unwinnable and one unwinnable matchup. Her unwinnable matchup was Oldhim. And you want to
Mm,
know why? because it was unwinnable. Like
Well,
you bring in Van Brace
yeah,
and you either go to time or you just lose. And the reason is because you just really can't put so much like Oldhim just blocks too well.
yeah,
And you're not a very good aggro deck. Like
no,
Azuri is not really your cards are not really built for going super hyper aggro without having to like put shit in there that doesn't synergize super well. You know, like nimbleism and stuff like that. It's just
yeah, exactly, because your ability kind of takes away the old attack action. So if you're buffing an attack action card, then you're gonna just
mhm,
replace it anyway, or you play like a double bluff game. But at the same time, like
yeah.
Oldhim has D reacts. He obviously his hero
Yes.
ability can just react to yours, right? You get an extra 2 block if you
Yeah.
want it. So it's
Yeah.
really tough for Azuri to get ahead in that matchup. You're obviously not obviously you're often trading at a disadvantage, a card disadvantage, so you can get fatigued pretty
Mhm.
easily. Yeah, I don't really see the deck. Obviously, the deck didn't work out against Oldhim, so now with Oldhim gone, obviously your matchups get better. You don't have to like worry about the
So
huge
yeah,
control matchup, fatigue matchup anymore.
I think your Dromai matchup is still bad. Like you're
Yeah,
not happy. Like it
but that won't change. I think like
you can run as many poppers as you want. I just don't know how you win the game. Like
yeah.
it's to the point where like you have damage and you have poppers, so you have to run at her, but you're not a hyper aggro deck, and it's
Hmm.
not easy to get rid of like a lot of her like if she's able to like do a 3 dragon turn and gain tempo, you're gonna be pretty hard pressed to not take a bunch of damage to get rid of dragon. So if she can string
Yeah,
together a bunch of those tempo turns, especially in the second half of the game, and just stack, Azuri can't really put so much pressure in the first half of the game that you're just able to like kill her before she gets
exactly,
to stack.
exactly. She's not an aggro deck, and you really need an aggro deck to be able to push the damage to prevent
In the
your
first half of the
Dromais
cycle. Correct,
from
correct.
getting
Yes.
that kind of board state advantage in the second half of the game. So I agree.
No.
But
The
I
reason
think
why
she got.
she's
I think she got
improved,
better though. Yeah.
yeah, her Lexi matchup's great. Like
Mm.
you just sit there, you disrupt till kingdom come.
Yep.
You have your you add these handy dandy frailty traps, and so you have
Right.
like triple codex, you have triple trap, and you provide. It's very hard for Lexi to work around this deck unless you just. I don't even know what kind of tech. I mean, that'll be the key for Lexi players. Like with Oldhim gone, and Azuri's definitely gonna. Azuri's put up results. Like it almost
Right.
won the calling, right? I mean, it was second place, right? So it's definitely a deck that people need to be watching out for and siding into. But at the moment, very good mid-range disruptive deck. The issue is like this isn't a tier list. This is just she overall improved because she's very good into the top deck right now.
Right.
Now that Oldham's gone, especially, but she's gonna have trouble keeping out the fringe decks. Like I don't particularly see her being super good into things like uh, Bravo, like Katsu. Like Katsu's probably pretty good into Katsu, but like Bravo, Briar, like these hyper disruptives or
Or
aggressive decks.
aggressive. Yeah.
Yeah, probably pretty reasonable into to Dash, like on the contract version. The same reason why like Arachne could beat Dash, just because you just gotta
Yeah.
keep milling,
Right.
and just like
Right.
kind of be a defensive enough. But I think overall she just improved just
Yeah.
solely because her Lexi matchup is just pretty good.
I agree. Riptide. Is Riptide dead? Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like until
Yeah.
someone actually figures out a good Riptide deck, I
He's
think
just
he's
not
just
really
the same.
figured out. Dead. No. Same is fine. If he was dead before, he's dead now. So you know what? Same. Yeah.
Arachne's also same. I think
Yep.
Azuri just outclasses him. Like
Okay.
Azuri gets text
Mm,
and all of Arachne's cards. Like other
right.
than Regicide, she gets every single thing Arachne gets. And she gets Shakedown, which is another popper disruptive block 3. Like
Right. Right.
why would you play Arachne? Like I don't really understand why anyone would play Arachne right now if Azuri is just as viable. Like until something happens. Azuri is just a better assassin because
Yeah.
Arachne has no text. And he has
And
one less good card because he doesn't get Shakedown.
exactly. Yeah. And his mechanic doesn't do anything to your hand state, board state. It's just like you're milling your opponent's deck. But if they're an aggro deck, they probably don't care too much. They're just gonna keep hitting you, and you'll just die.
Yeah, you can
So
you can hit good cards, but at the end of the day, you still have to win the game,
yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, you can hit the Art of Wars, I guess. Well, I mean, Fi isn't even that great
Pretty
anymore,
good.
but like still great.
No, yeah, that
Yeah,
was a Fi thing.
that was only
No,
for Fi.
no,
Yep. So there you have it. The
yeah, I think
improved slash
a
got
pretty
worse
good
list.
I think I'm pretty okay with these. This is obviously just kind of like this could change depending on how Vincent Prism shake things up in
Yeah, it's
Dawn Till
just for
Dusk.
now, for the next few months. Also, it's hard to tell what hero is going to be really rising in popularity because, like, if one hero just kind of becomes that new void in the triangle, this list might change too. Like, it really depends on which hero gets the biggest chunk of the pie. Right now, it looks like it's Lexi. I think Lexi and Dromai are probably going to stay up there.
Yeah. I think
But
Lexi, Dromai, and then I think Azalea and Azuri will probably come up with like
yeah,
some Katsu. I think it'll be like Azalea, Azuri, Katsu will be like the
yeah,
next kind of level. Like people are just going to be like trying to play more of that deck, and then there'll be like Dash, Dory, Briar, stuff like that,
yeah,
and then more Dash, Dory, Briar, Bravo, of course, and
Bravo
those kind of
too.
more fringe decks that people want to play. But I wouldn't be surprised if Vincent or Prism definitely show enough promise that decks have to like be more teched towards it.
They
So it really
should.
depends on
They
like,
should. It's,
yeah.
brand new set. I think they gotta change the meta a little bit. They gotta disrupt something for that set to really mean something, right?
Yep. No, it's fair. So that was pretty much it for our discussion here. If you like this kind of content, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe for wherever you're watching in the world. Have a good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Bye for now.